Hey everyone, it's February 5th, 2025, and you are listening to the Videntis podcast.
Yeah, you know it.
You ready to dive in?
Let's get into it.
All right, so today is going to be a wild one. We got protests brewing, Elon Musk is making some moves, and it looks like the Philippine vice president's in hot water.
Really sets the stage for, kind of a globally connected day in the news.
Absolutely. So let's start with these protests happening all across the U.S. It sounds like every state's going to have some action going on.
Yeah, and this is organized. It's not just random. It's called the 5501 movement.
5501 movement. I like.
Catchy, right? And they've teamed up with Political Revolution, so that's...
Oh, wow. So they mean business.
Oh, yeah. This is serious organization. They've got a network set up.
That's huge. And this is all in response to President Trump's executive orders, right?
Exactly. Those are the target. And, it's not even been a year into his second term, so...
Yeah, usually these things take a little time to heat up.
Right. This is It reminds me of some of the early pushback we saw during Nixon's time or even George W. Bush.
Interesting comparison. So, to be clear, we're talking about Trump's orders on trade, immigration, climate change.
The big ones. Yeah, all very divisive topics, as I know.
Definitely. And, it makes me think of those protests we saw in Southern California last month.
Oh, yeah. Thousands of people shut down a freeway.
Like, this is not just, a couple of people with signs. This is
organized disruption, for sure.
Okay, so we've got nationwide protests against Trump's policies. That's a big one. What's next?
Well, from protests to a potential power shift, let's talk about Elon Musk.
Oh, boy, here we go.
So it seems he's landed a new role, one that has a lot of people concerned. He now has access to the U.S. Treasury's payment system.
Wait, hold on. You mean the system that handles every single federal payment? Like
every single one, Social Security tax, refunds, government salaries, you name it, billions of dollars flowing through it every day.
And Trump just gave him the keys.
Well, he brought him on as a special government employee, the idea being that Musk can reduce spending, make things more efficient.
Okay, and how are people reacting to that? Because I know there were protests in Washington, right?
Over 1,000 people protested, and yeah, there are major concerns, starting with, is this even constitutional?
Because essentially we're talking about a private citizen with access to...
unprecedented access to the nation's finances.
And wasn't there something about him not having to follow the same rules as like a regular government worker?
Exactly, because he's a special government employee, fewer regulations apply, which, raises questions about transparency and accountability.
Wow, so Chuck Schumer... he's been pretty vocal about this.
Oh, yeah. Senate Democratic leader, he's calling for a full investigation, wants to know if this is even legal.
This could really set a precedent, huh?
Absolutely. How much power can the president just hand over to individuals? Like, where does it end?
Yeah, that's a slippery slope for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so from protests in America to Elon Musk maybe getting a little too much power, that was a lot.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
But we are not done yet. We got one more major story to cover, and this one takes us all the way to the Philippines.
Yeah, across the globe, the Philippines Vice President Sara Duterte, she's been impeached by the House of Representatives.
Impeached? Wow. So can you remind me, does that mean she's out of office, like, right now?
Not so fast. It's not automatic. Think of it as like a formal accusation.
Oh, okay.
So now she faces a trial in the Senate. They'll decide if she's actually guilty of the charges against her.
Gotcha. And what are those charges?
Well, they're pretty serious accusations. She's accused of making a death threat against the current president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
A death threat against the president? Wow.
Mishandling of funds is another one. And then there's her whole approach to Chinese aggression in the South China Sea that's been controversial.
Okay, so a lot on her plate, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
But a death threat against the president? Like, what's the deal there?
Well, there's no love lost between the Duterte family and Marcos Jr.
Right, her father, Rodrigo Duterte, he was president before Marcos Jr.
Exactly. And he was known for his, let's say, strongman tactics. So, there's some history there.
So basically this impeachment is happening against the backdrop of existing political drama.
Oh, yeah. Power struggles, rivalries, the whole 9 yards.
And over 215 lawmakers signed the petition to impeach her.
Way more than they needed. That shows you how much support there is for removing her.
Wow. So what happens next?
Well, we got to see what the Senate does. Their trial is going to determine Duterte's political future, but it could also have a ripple effect on the entire Philippines political scene.
And depending on how things shake out, it could even affect their foreign policy.
Especially with China. They've been making moves in the South China Sea, and the Philippines is right in the middle of that.
So this is definitely one to keep an eye on. The implications go way beyond just one politician's career.
For sure.
So let's recap. We've got protests erupting in the U.S., Elon Musk potentially reshaping the balance of power, and now a political earthquake in the Philippines. It's a lot.
Yeah, it feels like the whole world is kind of on edge today.
It does. And what's really interesting is how these stories, even though they seem so different, they're actually connected to these bigger global trends.
Exactly. We're seeing public distrust in authority playing out in the U.S. protests. Then you've got the whole question of who holds power with the Elon Musk situation. And in the Philippines, it's about political dynasties and the struggle for power all happening on a global stage.
It's a reminder that, everything is connected.
Yeah.
What happens in one part of the world can affect us all.
And that's why it's so important to stay informed, understand the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at the big picture here, what are the key takeaways for our listeners today?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that people all over the world are demanding more accountability from their leaders. The protests in the U.S. are a perfect example of that people are fed up.
And there's this unease about, the concentration of power, whether it's in the hands of a tech billionaire like Elon Musk or a political family like the Dutertes.
Yeah, people are starting to ask tough questions about power. Who has it? How did they get it? Can we trust them? And these are questions that are being asked everywhere.
And those are questions we should all be asking. So to our listeners out there, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those questions coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be here to help you navigate these complex issues and hopefully make some sense of it all. Yeah, it really makes you think,
It does. It's not just about knowing the facts. It's about connecting the dots, seeing the bigger picture.
And that's what we do here at the Videntis. We try to help you make sense of it all.
Absolutely. We're all about analysis, understanding the implications, and, starting those important conversations.
And speaking of conversations, I'm sure our listeners have a lot to say about all of this.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they do.
So what do you think? What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you see any other connections or patterns emerging? Head over to our social media pages and let's discuss.
Yeah, we want to hear from you, your perspectives, your insights.
Yeah.
It all helps, make this a richer conversation.
All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the news for February 5th, 2025, one thing is clear. This is a day that'll be remembered.
Definitely one for the history books.
Protests, power shifts, political shakeups. It's a lot.
And it all ties back to these bigger themes, right? Checks and balances, public dissent, the role of individuals on the world stage. It's fascinating to see how it all connects.
Absolutely. And these stories are far from over. So stay tuned.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay curious.
We'll be here to guide you through it all. Thanks for joining us on the Videntis podcast.
We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the stories shaping our world.